Welcome to the Marketing Behind Rapid Growth, the podcast where we explore the strategies, decisions, and growth engines behind some of the world's most successful technology companies. Today we're talking about n8n. Picture a visual effects studio in the middle of a deadline crunch. Hundreds of artists are racing to finish shots. And somewhere in the back office, one technical director is doing the same thing he did last week and the week before that. Pulling data from one system, reshaping it, pushing it into another. Not because it's hard, but because it's tedious, joyless. The kind of work that eats a developer's week and leaves nothing to show for it but a working pipe. That technical director was Jan Oberhauser, and the boredom he felt would eventually become a $5 billion idea. This is the story of n8n. It's not just a story about workflow automation. It's a story about a founder who looked at an entire industry's assumptions and decided they were wrong. Wrong about what no code should mean. Wrong about what open source should protect. And wrong about what marketing is actually for. Let's start where John started. Stuck. Part 1. The wall everyone ran into. By 2019, automation tools were not a new idea. Zapier had been around for years. MuleSoft owned the enterprise integration space. On paper, there was no obvious opening left. But Jan had spent enough time inside real technical teams to see a pattern nobody was pricing in. He called it the 80% wall. No-code tools were fantastic at getting you most of the way to a solution. Drag, drop, connect, done. But the instant a team needed something slightly custom, a strange data transformation, a niche integration, a piece of logic that didn't fit the template, the tool stopped being useful. Teams had to abandon the visual builder entirely and drop into raw code. That's a brutal trade-off. Speed versus flexibility. Pick one. Jan's insight was that this wasn't actually a law of nature. It was a design failure. So he built n8n as something closer to Lego blocks for engineers. A visual canvas where you could see your logic laid out clearly. But at any node, drop straight into JavaScript or Python if you needed to. No wall, no trade-off. Automation for people who already knew how to code, built by someone who was tired of writing the same code twice. He built the first version at night after his consulting work, supporting a young family on the side. When he launched on Product Hunt and Hacker News in October 2019, something became obvious almost immediately. People weren't just trying the tool, they were waiting for it. Part 2. The bet that could have killed the company. Fast forward to 2022. 8n is doing well. A healthy enterprise pipeline, a loyal technical community, by most measures, a solid business. Then generative AI arrives, and Jan is forced into a decision that a lot of founders would rather not face. Large language models were suddenly capable of doing simple automations on their own. The bread and butter use case that had built n8n's early business could, in theory, be swallowed whole by AI. Jan didn't sugarcoat what that meant. AI was either going to be the demise of the company or its biggest opportunity. There wasn't a comfortable middle option. Most competitors took the safe road. Sprinkle some AI on top. Add a chatbot that helps write a workflow. A nice-to-have feature, a 20% improvement, a press release. John didn't think 20% was the point. He wanted 10 times growth, and he didn't think you get there by decorating your existing product with AI branding. The model he kept coming back to was Pinecone. Pinecone hadn't marketed itself as a vector database. It had repositioned itself as an AI database, infrastructure, not a feature. That repositioning made it indispensable to an entire wave of AI builders. John decided n8n needed to make the same leap. Not add AI, become infrastructure for it. So he pulled together a small team of engineers and in an 8-week sprint rebuilt the core of the platform. Not to bolt on an API call to a language model, but to let users construct full AI agents inside n8n. Memory, vector stores, output parsing, the real machinery of agentic systems made visual and buildable. The ambition behind it was simple to say and hard to earn. Become the Excel of AI. Not the flashiest tool in the category, the default one. The one everybody just assumes they'll use. The way nobody questions opening a spreadsheet in Excel. Part 3. Firing the lead gen machine. Here's where the story stops being about product and becomes something more interesting. A case study in marketing courage. Like most B2B companies, n8n's marketing team had two jobs: drive adoption, generate leads for sales, and like most B2B companies, those two jobs were quietly at war with each other. Lead targets are easy to measure in a quarter. Community health is not. So gradually, resources drifted away from open community work and toward the familiar tools of enterprise marketing, gated white papers, contact sales buttons, the whole machinery built to prove short-term ROI to a board. Jan looked at this and saw a company slowly working against its own nature. n8n's real growth engine had never been a sales team. It was a swarm of technical evangelists, people making YouTube tutorials, sharing workflow templates, answering questions in forums, essentially doing unpaid product marketing because they loved the tool. So John made a call that would make most CMOs nervous. He removed lead generation as a primary marketing goal, not deprioritized it, removed it. Instead, the team went all in on top-of-funnel adoption. The explicit target wasn't the enterprise buyer. It was the smallest builder they could reach, a solo developer, a hobbyist, someone tinkering on a weekend project. The bet was that these small builders would eventually carry n8n with them into the largest organizations in the world. This wasn't wishful thinking dressed up as strategy. It was executed with real structure. They created a program for community navigators. They incentivized people to share knowledge with prizes. They gave YouTube creators equipment and coaching to make better content. In effect, n8n took its marketing budget and turned it into an endowment for its own community. And the flywheel that resulted was extraordinary. As YouTube tutorials and LinkedIn posts about n8n multiplied, revenue quadrupled in 8 months, a jump that had previously taken the company 6 years to achieve. By the end of 2024, 80% of new workflows being built on the platform included AI agents. n8n had quietly become load-bearing infrastructure for an entire ecosystem without ever chasing a single contact sales form fill to get there. Part 4. The trust moat. There's one more piece of this story worth sitting with because it's easy to overlook. It's licensing. Open source gets thrown around a lot in enterprise software, often as a marketing veneer rather than a real commitment. Jan took a more deliberate path and coined his own term: fair code. The n8n source code is open. Anyone can view it, modify it, self-host it for free. But the sustainable use license blocks other companies from taking that code and reselling it as a competing cloud product. This wasn't only a defensive move to protect revenue. It became a genuine differentiator, especially in Europe, where data sovereignty and tech autonomy carry real weight in procurement decisions. n8n could offer something its proprietary US-based competitors structurally could not: total control. Organizations including ministries of defense and global banks adopted n8n specifically because it could run fully air-gapped, disconnected from any vendor servers. And because Jan was transparent about the licensing model from the very beginning, n8n avoided the reputational damage that has hit other companies when they quietly changed license terms after building trust under different rules. That early honesty became its own kind of moat. Not one built on code, one built on credibility. Part 5. What this story actually teaches. Strip away the specifics, and a few strategic principles hold up regardless of industry. Start with your own frustration. The best product ideas often come from a founder solving a problem they personally can't stand anymore. That frustration keeps you honest about whether you're actually building something useful. When a shift like AI arrives, don't just decorate your product with it. Ask whether you can become infrastructure for it. Wrapper features get commoditized. Infrastructure gets depended on. Let your marketing metrics match your product's real growth mechanism. If your users find you through community and word of mouth, forcing your team to chase traditional lead gen numbers actively works against your own advantage. Treat community as a scaling mechanism, not a nice to have. Jan personally answered early forum posts himself. Years later, a community of 1.7 million builders now largely supports itself. And understand the direction growth actually flows. You can't easily move down from enterprise-only positioning to mass adoption, but capture individual builders early, and they will eventually pull your product into the enterprise on their own. Conclusion. In May 2026, SAP announced a strategic investment in n8n, valuing the company at $5.2 billion, and began embedding it natively into SAP's Joule Studio. Some of the most mission-critical business processes in the world are now running on a tool that started as one person's attempt to stop rewriting the same integration code on repeat. None of it was inevitable. It was a sequence of decisions that looked risky in the moment. Choosing a licensing model that limited short-term revenue, rebuilding a stable product at the height of its success, and dismantling a lead generation function that was, by conventional standards, working fine. n8n bet that the smallest builder mattered more than the biggest buyer. And in doing so, it built something bigger than a tool. It built the connective layer underneath an entire industry. This was the marketing behind rapid growth. See you in the next episode.